Breaking news. Columbia up against Trump deadline for meeting demands over campus protests. Columbia University faced a Thursday deadline to respond to 9 demands on tightening restrictions on campus protests that the Trump administration says are preconditions for opening talks on restoring $400 million in suspended federal funding. Among the demands, the administration wants the school to ban face masks on campus and seek arrest powers for its security employees. It also demands that Columbia reform its student admissions policies and adopt the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism, which encompasses some criticisms of Israel as a Jewish state. The administration also demands that the university place its Middle Eastern, South Asian and African Studies department under academic receivership for at least 5 years, taking control away from its faculty. A 2-page letter addressed to Dr. Katrina Armstrong, the school's interim president, and Columbia's trustees sent on March 13th, spelling out the conditions did not explain why receivership, in which control of a dysfunctional department is taken over by an outside administrator, was one of the demands. The face-off between the private New York University and the White House is an extraordinary test of the extent of a president's executive powers. Columbia's response is being watched by other schools the administration has sanctioned as it advances its policy objectives in areas ranging from protests to transgender sports and diversity initiatives. President Donald Trump has singled out Columbia repeatedly since returning to the White House in January over the pro-Palestinian student protest movement that roiled its campus last year. The Ivy League university's lawns filled with tent encampments and noisy rallies against the US government's support of Israel. Pro-Israel counter-protests were also frequent. Trump and some pro-Israel lawmakers in Congress say the pro-Palestinian protests intimidated Jewish students and staff and accuse Columbia of allowing anti-Semitic harassment. The university has defended itself by saying it has worked to balance freedom of expression without tolerating anti-Semitism or other prejudice. Protesters, including some Jewish students, say criticism of Israel is being wrongly conflated with anti-Semitism. The American Association of University Professors, some Columbia faculty and students and civil rights groups have accused Trump of authoritarianism and violating constitutional rights to free speech and due process. The subjugation of universities to state power is a hallmark of autocracy, Todd Wolfson, president of the American Association of University Professors, said in a statement. The Trump administration announced on March 7th that it was immediately cancelling federal grants and contracts at Columbia without following the usual lengthy investigation and hearings process in the Civil Rights Act. The administration has declined to say which grants and contracts were targeted. Over to my colleague to give you more details on it.
The next day, federal immigration agents arrested Palestinian student activist Mahmoud Khalil, a prominent figure in last year's protests, saying the government had cancelled his permanent residency green card because his presence was contrary to U.S. foreign policy interests. Khalil said in a statement from a Louisiana immigrants' jail this week that he is a political prisoner and he is fighting the government's efforts to deport him in court. Let's talk more on the University Senate. Many of the administration's demands entail policy changes that would have to pass its University Senate, made up of elected students, staff, alumni, and faculty. Columbia has shared governance with the Senate since the late 1960s, when anti-war students organized disruptive protests in which they seized control of buildings and briefly held a dean hostage. The Senate has repeatedly criticized any signs of Columbia administration sidestepping its governance powers, including in April, when the administration, without Senate permission, called police on campus to arrest student protesters for the first time since 1968. The Senate declined to advance a proposed mask ban earlier this year. In New York, arrest powers can only be granted to private citizens, such as Columbia security employees, by a state or local government body. In a campus-wide message on Wednesday, Armstrong wrote that Columbia will not waver from our principles and the values of academic freedom and free expression that have guided this institution for the last 270 years. She described the various ways the school has combated harassment and prejudice on campus and promised a new webpage to report the school's progress. She did not address how the school would respond to specific demands. Pro-Palestinian students have demanded for years that Colombia end investments of its $14.8 billion endowment in weapons makers and other companies that support Israel's military occupation of Palestinian territories. The school said it was willing to expedite consideration of the divestment demands by an investment advisory committee. Let's talk about the U.S. judge who criticized Trump attacks on Judiciary, cleared of ethics complaints. A U.S. judge has been cleared of wrongdoing for going on CNN to speak out against threats made against members of the judiciary and respond to Donald Trump's comments about the daughter of the judge who presided over the New York case in which the now president was convicted last year. The Philadelphia-based Third Circuit Judicial Council threw out 2 ethics complaints against senior U.S. District Judge Reggie Walton in Washington. It found that Walton did not talk about the merits of any legal case, but instead commented only on Trump's statements made on social media about Justice Juan Merchan, who presided over the New York criminal case, and his family. Chief U.S. Circuit Judge Michael Chagares said Walton warned about the unintended consequences of public remarks like those made by Trump, and also emphasized the importance of the independence of judicial officers in maintaining the rule of law and ensuring that laws are applied equally to all who appear before a judge. These comments do not amount to judicial misconduct, Chagares wrote. The ruling followed 2 judicial ethics complaints that were filed against Walton after the judge gave a rare televised interview to CNN in March 2024. One of the complaints was brought by a Trump ally, Article 3 project founder Mike Davis. The other complainant has not been identified. The complaints accused Walton of violating judicial ethics rules by commenting on the merits of a pending case, potentially tainting the jury pools in the 4 criminal cases then pending against Trump by accusing him of making violent threats against Merchan. Trump was not president at the time. The complaints about Walton's interview were consolidated before the Third Circuit Judicial Council, resulting in a January 31st decision. Opens new tab that was released publicly this week, finding he did not violate the Judicial Code of Conduct. The decision did not identify Walton by name, but Walton, an appointee of Republican former President George W. Bush, on Thursday, confirmed to Reuters he was the judge at issue. The decision also included quotes matching a complaint Davis filed. Walton had no further comment. Davis did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The decision comes amid new concerns about judicial security, prompted by vocal attacks by Trump, his billionaire advisor Elon Musk, and other administration officials against judges who block the president's agenda in court. For instance, Trump has called for the impeachment of a judge who has ruled in a case concerning the administration's deportation flights and called the jurist a radical left lunatic. Over to you, my colleague.
Walton appeared on CNN after Trump began publicly assailing Merchan and his daughter ahead of his criminal trial on charges related to hush money paid to porn star Stormy Daniels before the 2016 presidential election. Trump called Merchan's daughter a rabid Trump hater in a post on his social media platform. Walton told CNN it was very disconcerting to have someone making comments about a judge, and expressed concern that such remarks by people in authority could resonate with others and cause them to maybe cause injury or death to someone. Merchan in January sentenced Trump ahead of his inauguration for a second term in office to an unconditional discharge with no prison term after a jury last year found him guilty of falsifying documents to cover up the hush money payment. In another news, Trump administration response on Venezuela deportations woefully insufficient, judge says. President Donald Trump's administration's response to a judicial request for more details on the deportation of hundreds of Venezuelan migrants was woefully insufficient, a judge said on Thursday. Washington-based U.S. District Judge James Boasberg is weighing whether administration officials violated his order intended to temporarily block the expulsions. In an order on Thursday, the judge told officials to explain by March 25th why their failure to bring the deported migrants back to the United States did not violate his order. Boasberg's order escalates a dispute between the judge and Trump's administration, has raised concerns among Trump critics and some legal experts about a potentially looming constitutional crisis if his administration defies judicial decisions. Under the U.S. Constitution, the executive and the judiciary are co-equal branches of government. Trump has said he would not defy any court orders. Boasberg had previously said he was trying to determine whether the administration had violated his orders, but given officials the chance to provide further details about the flights. But Thursday marked the first time the judge directly ordered officials to address whether they had violated his order by issuing what is known as an order to show cause. If you enjoyed this update, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our future news. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.